Learners, welcome back to our segment, a continuation of what you were doing earlier on. Recall, in our last class, we introduced the concept of Modigiliani and Miller preposition to. Of course, this is with the component of corporation taxes. So I gave you guys a clear concept in relation to the same, and also went ahead and look at a question, right? So today's segment is a continuation of that. Allowed us to look at another question, which in this case, this question is going to come from our past paper. Question is going to come from our past paper, which was attested in December 2022. Yeah. So once you have the concepts that Mwalimu shared with us, you'll find that handling the questions for Modigiliani and Miller will always be very easy. So the question is December 2022. Yeah, that must be question number 3. So I'm going to share the question with us so that at least we have it right and we should be able to handle it with ease. Yeah. So this is our question here. That's our question. Believing that is very visible. Yeah. These are what you're asked. 2 firms, A and B, 2 firms, A Limited and B Limited, operate in the same industry. The 2 firms are similar in all aspects except their capital structures. The following additional information is available, where I'm told we're having A Limited, which is financed using 100 million worth of ordinary shares. B Limited is financed using 50 million in ordinary shares and 50 million 7% debentures. Note 3, the earnings before interest and tax, EBIT, are 10 million for both firms. These earnings are expected to remain constant indefinitely. The cost of equity in A is 10%. The cost of equity in A Limited is 10%. Then we are told the corporate tax rate is 30%. The corporate tax rate is 30%. So given such a question, my good students, it is important that at this point, you should recall what Mwalimu guided us. Once you've seen such a question, whatever that you should just be doing is to smile. Because everything that will always be asked many a times when it comes to Modigiliani and Miller, the concept will always be the same. So number one thing that we need to ask ourselves is, do we know to determine the value? And do we know how to determine the cost of equity of the levered firm? These are the 2 most important questions that we must always tend to ask ourselves anytime we are handling the questions from Modigiliani and Miller. So number 1, we must be able to ask ourselves if at all we still recall how to determine the value of the value of the levered firm. The value of the levered firm, recall, Mwalimu said we should always be talking about the value of unlevered. In this case, we have to add the tax shield on debt. Yeah, tax shield on debt. Literally, to determine the tax shield on debt, we'll just be taking the component of the tax rate times the debt that we'll be having. Then it will also be very important for us to recall how to determine the cost of equity of the levered firm. So to determine the cost of equity of the levered firm, we agreed we'll be talking of the cost of equity of unlevered. In this case, we are going to consider our risk premium. We add our risk premium. And how will you achieve your risk premium? I'm just taking you back to what we did. To achieve our risk premium, recall, for us to achieve our risk premium in this context, we must always consider the following. That is, of course, the cost of equity of unlevered will less the cost of debt. We have to determine the proportion of debt to equity ratio. All this, remember, is net of tax. That is our risk premium. So once we have this, then it is as if you have everything. For MM or Modigiliani and Miller preposition 2 with the component of tax, this is very vital. You can't handle any question for MM with tax without these concepts. Yeah, you can't handle without these concepts. So back to our question, let us see. We are given two farms. I'm given farm A, which in this case we're having farm A. If at all you can check in that portion, we're having farm A and you're having farm B. So farm A and B, if I told you talk of our EBIT, earnings before interest and tax, talk about our cost of equity, and talk about these are of course our KE. We can talk about our debt. Yeah, talk about our debt component. Yeah. So on this case, earnings before interest and tax, we are told that that is as per note number 3. The earnings before interest and tax are 10 million for both firms. So I'm given a value of 10 million here for both firms. The cost of equity, we are told for firm A is 10%. Debt, we are told debentures, in this case, a good examiner is giving us debentures, and we are told at 7%. This was for firm B, that is the one which was delivered. From B, I'm given a value of debentures of 50 million. See? So with only this information, then we can proceed and work it out. With only this information, then you can proceed and work out all our concepts here. So we start given the fact that our tax rate, a good examiner here had given us 30%. So that is what you must consider. Just a moment here. Mhm. So we're having our tax rate. Our tax rate, a good examiner here clearly has told us that our tax rate we had at the rate of 30%. Yeah, this was our tax rate. So having this information, it is as if we are good to go with everything now. Because the next item now for us to do will be to compute the value of unlevered farm. Value of unlevered farm, which is unlevered is farm A. So what about the value of farm A? The value of farm A will be very easy because you must always recall the earnings before interest and tax. We divide by our cost of equity. This is 1 minus T after tax cost of debt, or rather after tax component, right? So therefore, in this case, we can all agree that determining our value of farm A is the one which was unlevered. We are terming it as unlevered because we don't have the component of debt. So that should give us our earnings before interest and tax, which would be 10 million. We divide by cost of equity, which is 10%, times 1 minus T, which is 0.3. So therefore, we can agree that this should give us the value of farm A, which we should be talking of what? 10 million divided by 10% times 0.7 to give us 70 million. So value of farm A, we are having a value of 70 million. Considering our value of farm A, we can now consider the value of farm B, value of B. So B, this was levered. And we've clearly said that for levered, you see, you must always have this. You must always have that. So that should be very easy because I'll just be taking 70 million value of unlevered we add our tax shield on debt. Tax shield on debt, simply, we are taking the tax rate, which was 30%, times the debt component, which was 50 million. So in this case, my good students, you can agree and say that I should be having 0.3 times 50 million to give us 15. Yeah, that is the case. We should be having 15. Of course, 15 million. Kindly confirm if at all you are getting the same value. Yeah, because whatever that you are looking at is what you are having there. So that is what we should be having. We're having that. Mwalimu is getting that. Kindly confirm. You shouldn't say that Mwalimu, you're quick or you're fast. So this case, I'm getting 15 million. So that is to say the value of my B, which is levered, value of B, which is levered, I'll be having 70 plus 15 million, which will give us now 85 million. You see? So already I've worked out the value of these two firms. As simple as that. As simple as that. As simple as that. Yeah? So the next item to consider is for us to determine the WACC, the weighted average cost of capital. The weighted average cost of capital. So for us to determine the weighted average cost of capital, it is important that we determine, first of all, the cost of equity of the levered firm. We must determine the cost of equity of the levered firm, because KE for levered or unlevered, we are given 10%. This is KE for the unlevered firm. Yeah. Then KE for levered, which in this case is KE for B. This is KE for A. So KE for B, I should recall this, that we will be taking our cost of equity. In this case, we should be taking our cost of equity of levered. So I'm talking of cost of equity of unlevered, which is 0.1. We are going to add our risk premium. Our risk premium, remember, is what Mwalimu had given us there. Our risk premium is what Mwalimu had given us here. So risk premium, I'll be taking my risk premium to be cost of equity of unlevered, which is 0.1, with less cost of debt, which in this case is 0.07 because it was 7%. Debt to equity ratio. Our debt to equity ratio, we come to the value here. See, if at all my debt of 85 million, as per what we are working it out, my debt is 50. Whatever that we are looking at, my debt is 50 million. Yeah, our debt is 50 million. So what about our equity component, my good students? If the total value is 85, my debt is 50, what will be our equity? Our equity, therefore, we can agree to be the balance, which is 35 million, right? So once I have that, I should have here my debt to equity ratio. So I'll be talking of 50 million divided by 35 million. All this, I should not forget to incorporate 1 minus t, which is 1 minus 0.3. So this should give us the cost of equity of the levered, where in this case, I'll be having therefore 0.1 with less 0.07. We multiply this one by 50 of 35. times 0.7. So I should be talking of the whole of this bit we are having, or Mwalimu is getting 0.03. So therefore, taking my cost of equity of the levered, I should be having 0.1, the one that we had for cost of equity for unlevered, plus the risk premium here, which is 0.03. So my answer plus 0.1, in this case, I'm getting 13, 0.13, which if I told you to translate it, this should give us a value of 13%. Kindly confirm. We should be having 13%. Take your time, take your time, take your time, take your time. Take your time to have that. Take your time to have that. So the moment we have this, therefore, what will be our WACC? Because that is the cost of equity. So WACC, therefore, after you have your time, I don't need this question anymore. I don't need this question anymore. So therefore, our WACC, right? All we should be having here in mind is that we are talking of the cost or weight of equity times the cost of equity. We add weight of debt plus our cost of debt after tax. After tax. After tax. Yeah? So therefore, in this case, we should be talking of our WACC to be, I'm having, therefore, our, remember you're looking at levered. This is Farm B. This is Farm B. Because Farm A, the cost of equity will just be the same as WACC because you don't have any debt. So for Farm B, I'll be having my equity component and you're having our debt component. So based on the value as per whatever that you have computed here, my equity is 35 million. Our debt is 50 million to give us a total value of 85 million. So therefore, that is to say, my weight will be what? Our weight for equity, I should be talking of therefore 35 divided by 85 to give me 0.41. Debt 50 divided by 85 to give us 0.59. We have our cost. Cost of equity, we have determined it to be 13. Whereas cost of debt, remember, cost of debt, we had it here to be 7%. Yeah. So therefore, in this case, what will be our combined cost? Our combined cost, I should be having 0.41, we multiply by 13 to give us 5.33. 0.59 times 7, this should give us 4.13. So therefore, to determine the combined cost plus 5.33, this should give us 9.46. 9.46%. See? WACC. WACC for levered farm. This is WACC for B, whereas WACC for A, because we don't have any debt, it will just be the same as KE, which you are given 10%. So further, if I told you to go and explain it as per Modigiliani and Miller, you realize that at this point where I am having a farm which is financed with debt, its cost will be lower and its value will be higher. Like in this context, you can see the value of the farm which is financed with debt, the geared farm, the value is 85 million. Whereas for ungeared, the value is 70. So you'll find that on the value, the geared farm is, the value is higher. When it comes to the cost for geared farm, you'll find that the cost is lower compared to the ungeared farm. Remember the assumptions of what we looked at under Modigiliani and Miller, and when we looked at preposition 2, which is the combination of tax, or rather with tax included, we saw all these effects that Molimu is talking about. Yeah. So to this point, that's what you're supposed to do. I want you guys to meet me in the next session, whereby we are going to do another question for Modigliani and Miller. I want by the time you are clearing with all these sessions, in the event that you have these questions for Modigliani and Miller, they should always be just kind of, you always take them as a booster questions, right? To that point, see you then in our next class as we'll be looking at another question. Thank you. Bye-bye.